Good morning, how are we doing? Well, by now I will have published all 5 of my North Pennines films, which I shot last September. I do have a few more local films to share with you, but in the meantime I just thought I'd put this video together as to how I'm planning my filming for 2024. Now this isn't something I normally do, but I'm just doing this following on from some of the questions I got in my recent Q&A videos. So I'll just give you a brief outline as to how I've actually sit down to plan where I'm going to be filming for 2024. Now before I start, I would just like to make one very polite request, and that is, can I please respectfully ask people not to get in touch with me asking when my next film's going to be. I have also put that on my Solitary Rambler website. Now, don't get me wrong, it is absolutely lovely that people want to know when my next film's going to be. But the reason I'm making this request is because, particularly looking back to last year, that was my busiest year of filmmaking ever. And for the most part, I was uploading a new film every week. And I think I may have raised people's expectations with that. And I was getting a comment from people or an email, even if there was only a gap of 2 or 3 weeks, saying, when's your next film? And it's like, oh, flipping heck. So yeah, it's just really, the request is a gentle reminder to people that I am still working full time, and the filmmaking is a hobby that I do of my own choosing in my spare time. But what I will do is in future, like now, I will post an update if there are going to be any long gaps in between films. So thank you for bearing with me on that. My plans for 2024 then. Well, I won't reveal where I'm going, but I will just tell you about how I've been planning where I'm going. Now originally, I was going to be doing very much the same as I've been doing in recent years. So if I take last year for example, 2023, most of the films I made were local. Most of them were made around Derbyshire and the Peak District. But there was one time where I spent a week further away, and that was when I went to the North Pennines in September. So I thought maybe for this year I'll do something very similar. So mainly do films locally, but maybe have 1 week further away and make some films there. However, I've decided to change my plans. At the very last minute I changed my plans. Now, in some ways I took on board a comment that I received for one of my Q&A videos recently. Somebody asked me a question, which was, have I plans to make any future films outside of the Peak District again? To which I answered, well, I'd like to, but obviously for me to travel further away, it costs money. So that's the very reason why I have been staying very local in recent years. But, and it's quite funny in some ways, because I'm just thinking of comments I've received in the past. I remember having one comment from somebody a few years ago now, and she said, love your videos, it'd be lovely if you made a video here in Kent. Yeah, it would be lovely. But with all due respect, when people make those suggestions, what they don't take on board is that for me to travel to those places, it costs money. So again, that's the very reason why I've been staying local in recent years. Now, for this year, I have decided to go further afield. What I've basically done is I've looked at my budget, and I've also looked at when I'm likely to be taking leave off work. So that's how I plan where I'm going to be going. So I'll just sort of talk through that now. My first job then was to look at dates. So I looked at a calendar for 2024 and looked at dates throughout the entire year as to when I wanted to take leave from work. Now, this is a job that I do at the start of each year anyway. Every year, I always look at the entire year ahead of me and plan the days I want to book off work. Now, I'm very lucky in my job because any days that I want to take, as long as I take the days that are owed to me, there's never a problem with taking the days off that I want to book. So it's really great, and it helps me to plan ahead places I want to go. So for this year it's great because I'm planned ahead where I'm going to be travelling throughout the year. So I've actually already booked accommodation in several places. Okay, so the first thing I do then is, once I've planned on when I'm taking time off work, is to decide where I'm going. Now, when I went to the North Pennines last year, one of the walks I filmed briefly took me into Northumberland, And I thought, do you know what, this year it would be lovely to go back to Northumberland, because I went to Northumberland in 1991 into the national park, and I thought it was lovely. But also I've never been to the Northumberland coast. So I thought maybe this year, why don't I try and cover places in those areas? That'd be lovely. So for the middle of March that I'm going to take off work, I looked at accommodation for the places where I would like to be filming in Northumberland. Unfortunately, the price was just too high. I looked at the price and I thought, stuff that, it's too much. It's not that I probably couldn't afford it. I mean, by the time March comes around, I would have saved up enough money to cover the accommodation, but it was just more than I wanted to spend, to be fair. So I thought, okay, we won't do Northumberland this year then, we'll do somewhere else. So another place I looked at, which has been on my list for a very long time, Pembrokeshire. I've always wanted to go back to Pembrokeshire since I made a film there in 2005. But it's a very, very long list I've got here. I won't say how many places I've got on the list. But again, I looked at accommodation in Pembrokeshire for the middle of March. Prices were too high again, plus the fact that even just reaching the county boundary from here, it's 250 miles. So the cost of fuel is going to be enough in itself. So I just thought, I just really don't want to spend that amount of money. So sadly, Pembrokeshire crossed off this year's list. So I looked at another place. So looked at this other place, and I looked at accommodation for the middle of March, and I thought, that's more affordable. Let's book that then. So I've booked a few days in a Premier Inn. I've stayed in Premier Inns before, and I love them. For a solo traveller like me, they suit me down to the ground, and you always know what to expect with a Premier Inn. Now, the Premier Inn I booked in at the middle of March, I managed to get a good deal there. I normally go for the cheapest deal, which means you have to pay up front. So if you do decide that you're not going to go at the last minute, you just lose your money. But touch wood, I've never had that problem as yet, so hopefully I won't this time. So this Premier Inn now, for the few days that I'm staying there in the middle of March, I've already booked for the accommodation. So breakfast is also paid for, as well as the night stay. The only thing I've got to pay for when I get there is obviously the travel there and back, and the travelling around the places I'll be filming, and the evening meals. So that's a good way of budgeting. Now, having done the middle of March, looking throughout the rest of the year, I'm going to take a couple of days off at the start of April. So that's going to be around the Easter holidays. So again, I've already booked another Premier Inn, which is not far from where the other one is. So I can cover other places in that same area when I'm staying in this Premier Inn. And I've got this Premier Inn for a good deal again. It's all paid for, like the other one. I've just got to pay for the evening meals when I get there and travelling there and back again. So that's a lot of the chunk of the money out of the way. This is how I budget, you see. So the next week I'm going to take off is going to be the end of May 2024, which is the Whitsun Bank Holiday Week. Now, I've already booked accommodation for that, but I haven't paid for this. Partly because, well, I've already paid for 2 lots of Premier Inns now, so I'm a bit sort of, I've got to watch the money now. But by the time the end of May comes, I will have saved up again. So what I've done is I've looked on booking.com, which I found great. So what I did was I searched for the area where I wanted to cover films, and I found a 1-bedroom apartment, which is great, and I got a good deal there. So I should be staying in this 1-bedroom apartment at the end of May to film places that are local to that area. And as I say, I'll just be paying for it all when I come to arrive there. But the good thing about staying in an apartment is I'll be catering for myself. It's all self-catering, so I don't need to eat out every night. I probably will do sometimes, but I can sort of budget a bit cheaper, and there's a Tesco not far from there, I know, and there's a little co-op as well. So I can sort of buy things to make for myself whilst I'm staying there, rather than sort of paying to eat out all the time, which will cut the cost down a bit. So that's the end of May. I'm going to take a couple of days off at the end of June, or towards the end of June. So again, I've booked accommodation for a few nights at that time. That's in another place to cover a similar area. It's not far from where I've previously booked, but again, it will cover part of the same region. So I got a good deal at this B&B. Never stayed at this B&B before, but again, by the time I get to June, say it's only a few days away, this place, so I'll have saved up money to pay for that when I arrive there. And again, I'll just have to pay for evening meals, because the breakfast I'll just pay for as well when I get there, but I'll have to buy evening meals on top of that because this is a B&B. So, but yeah, that's only a few days, so that's fine. And then lastly, I should be booking a week off at the start of September. So again, I've booked a guest house for this one. This is a B&B. There is also a restaurant there actually, which is great, but that's only open a few nights a week. So again, I'll pay for that when I arrive there, and then I'll just have to pay for evening meals on top of that. But I will be eating in the restaurant for 2 nights that I'm staying there. So that's really how I arrange my accommodation throughout the year. So all exciting stuff then. Looking forward to it. As I say, the only disadvantage with pre-booking accommodation is because it means that I'm now tied to those dates to travel to these places. So as I say, if the weather is bad, well, I either just go out filming in the bad weather or I just don't film at all. So I don't know how many of these films I'm going to actually make this year, but I'm going to try and do as many of them as I can. As I say, I just feel that the longer I look at this list, the less likely I am to actually get around to filming it. So I'm going to try and blitz this list as much as possible this year. So, in a nutshell, that's my plans for 2024. My next film will be posted on the 1st of March. Hope you can catch me then. Bye for now.